How should game developers pick reference tracks for their composers? If you're a game developer, you've probably been at the point where you have hired a composer and then you started considering how to actually give them the task and what reference list to pick. In my opinion, as a game composer, references in general are not a bad idea, they can actually be pretty useful. But the problem usually lies in how they're being used. There are a few mistakes that I keep on seeing that can actually decide if your soundtrack is gonna sound unique or not. One of the common mistakes is when a game dev team picks music from a similar game. So for example, they're developing a fantasy game and they pick The Witcher 3 or Skyrim. And then they want the music in their game to sound just like those references. And as a result, the game loses its audio identity. Think about this. Art, gameplay, even the promotion that you do for your game, all of that defines what your game is. All of that is its identity. So why would you want music to sound like some other game? In my personal experience, references work best when they're used as a sort of getting to know you tool. Especially at the very start of collaboration when we haven't worked together before. They can help me understand not just what other games inspired your project, but what led you to making this game in the first place? What inspires the developers? Maybe it's films, books, or even music outside of video games. And sometimes the most useful references have nothing to do with video games at all. I've personally had experiences when the game developer would tell me, there is this one song by this band that I really like the atmosphere of, and I can't really put it into words, but I kind of want you to capture this atmosphere and put it into the fantasy genre. And at first, of course, I would have to think about how do I make it work in a different context. But when I figured it out, I think that we created something special because they would be elements of the music completely unrelated to video games, but they would be put into orchestral setting on fantasy. And in general, just understanding where you come from as a developer, understanding what led you to this specific project is worth much more than just comparing your game to some other games. And I don't mean that you shouldn't be using similar video games as an example for the music that you want, but just use it in a combination with other things that could maybe provide some inspiration for further experimentation on the soundtrack. Another important point has more to do with communication than references themselves. And this is something that I keep seeing a lot. It's the use of very subjective terms to describe what you want. I'm pretty sure that almost every game developer has at least once heard the phrase, I want some epic music. Of course, if the game developer already knows what this specific composer understands under the term epic, then there shouldn't be any problems. But most of the time, they have a very specific vision of the music that doesn't necessarily correlate with what the composer understands with this term. For some people, epic means music like Hans Zimmer or Two Steps from Hell, which is like over-the-top epic, overproduced music. But for some other people, epic would mean something like Battle Track in Baldur's Gate 3. And personally, I think the music in Baldur's Gate 3 is pretty epic. But if you look at the arrangement itself, it's much more reduced than what you would hear on Hans Zimmer tracks. So another piece of advice that I could give you is be specific about what you like in the references. If you want an epic battle track, then provide a few references that you think explain your understanding of the term epic the best way, and maybe name a few elements that you like in particular. For example, a certain set of instruments, or maybe some sound design effect, or maybe something else that you like about it. And I feel like this combined with all of the other influences outside of video games would give me a much better and clearer vision of your taste and direction of the game. This would set boundaries for experimentation. I would know what you like and what you dislike, and most importantly, it would put me as a composer in the same headspace as you while developing the game. And I feel like this is just what you want to do as a game developer. You want everyone to work like this one organism, everyone to understand each other, and while everyone contributes something of their own, they also understand what the other person wants. And that's when references stop being about copying other styles, but more about creating room for experimentation that is unique to your own project. And in the end, this will lead to a soundtrack that complements the identity of your game. So that's it for this short video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was any helpful. Let me know in the comments what I should talk about next, and please consider subscribing. This would really help me on my journey as a composer. Thank you, and I see you on the next one. Cheers.